And we are finally here as the postseason, the play-in, the playoffs, whatever we want to all agree on is finally here. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers pregame show here, presented by our great friends from Coors Light, as you can see right here on our table here on this Wednesday night. Derek Bodner, Devon Givens, Brianna producing, all of you hanging out with us just about 30 minutes before tip-off in South Philadelphia as the play-in tournament got underway last night in the Western Conference side of the bracket. And now in the East, the Philadelphia 76ers and the Miami Heat get the first game. The Atlanta Hawks, Chicago Bulls game 2 will be later on this evening. But as we all know, this is a huge game for the 76ers. You win and you are in automatically as a 7th seed. You lose this game against the Miami Heat and you will face the winner of the 9-10 matchup. That will be on Friday night for the right to play the Boston Celtics. You win and you get the 7th seed. You will then take on the New York Knicks. The schedule is already out. If it is Sixers Knicks or Heat Knicks, winner of this game, that will begin on Saturday at 6 p.m. in New York. Loser of the game facing the winner of the Atlanta-Chicago game will take on the Boston Celtics 1 o'clock on Sunday. So, Derek, it is imperative that they win this one, not only to avoid Boston, but just because it's more fun to face the New York Knicks right away and kind of give us a little bit of a breather, wipe our brow a little bit and say, okay, let's get ready for the New York Knicks on Saturday.
Yeah, look, one thing that I think has sort of, I don't want to say disappointed me, but makes me a little bit sad about this era of Sixers basketball. There's so much doom and gloom when we get to the playoffs because, they always lose, this always happens. I don't trust this. I don't trust Embiid to stay healthy. I don't trust him to get out of the second round. Playoff basketball is fucking amazing, man.
It's always the
love
best.
Playoff basketball, whether it is a strategy, whether it is the theater, whether it is the excitement, whether it is the nerves. It is all incredible. And I just wish anyone who's coming into this, I don't say doom and gloom, but skeptical or defeatist. I understand, like we've all been here, but it's such an incredible moment. It's such an incredible, it's just have fun, believe a little bit, just have a little bit of belief. And this is the most magical time of the year. Maybe not, hasn't been historically, but this is just, it is the top of the sport, and I'm very excited.
Drop your shoulders a little bit. Don't stress. Just, sure, you're going to be biting your fingernails. You're going to have your rituals. You're going to have the things that you like to do during these games, especially in the postseason, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, hockey, soccer, whatever it is. You know you're going to have your way of watching the game. The first half, Sixers playing well. You're going to tell your significant other, you were in the other room for the first half. Stay in there. I'll see you post-game because that's how they were winning and up by double digits at the half. If it's not happening that way, you're going to say, you were in the other room, come sit here so we can watch this game and try to change the mojo overall to get this victory. But, Derek, you're right, man, because I would always say this when we had the chance to speak in other forums over the last few years that we've been doing our jobs.
You mean when I would text you while you were on your show and you would bring me up on air but couldn't say my name because I got to check from the other station?
Very true.
I would listen to Von every night driving home from the arena, and he could never mention it.
I would say a friend of mine just text me. And that's now I can talk about my friend who's sitting to my left. But what I would always say is, I would say this, folks, first of all, just enjoy the game. Don't fast forward the 82 games because when you get into the guts of the playoffs, it's win or go home. You got the 82 to enjoy. And then when you do get to the postseason, try your best to get to that arena because, man, when you are in the arena for a playoff game, boy, the center is rocking. I haven't been to many in the play. You've been to Scotiabank Arena during the playoffs. You've been to Boston for the playoffs. You've been to Miami for the postseason. But, man, there's nothing like being, of course, in this arena here because when it gets loud, it gets loud. When they make a run and it's inevitably ended by a Sixer three-pointer or a fast break dunk or a Joel Embiid bucket and a timeout is called by the opposing team, that place goes nuts.
Yeah. And look, I understand what came after this, but last year, Game 5 against Boston, that arena was like Game 6.
Game 6.
Game 6, the first until the last quarter.
Well, first of all,
the
MVP. Yeah. Joel Embiid got the MVP. His son ran on the court. Crowd went nuts. And then the place
and
just
that nervous
erupted.
And that energy, which started off nervous, and then he built a lead, and it escalated. And look, I know what happened afterwards, but when that building was rocking, it was just absolutely, truly absurd. And Philly fans, I think they're dying to buy into this team. I think they're dying to buy into Joel Embiid. I think they're dying to buy into Tyrese Maxey. They're just nervous. They're not ready to fully commit until they give them something to believe in. And this is the first step in you believing in this team, in this era of Sixers basketball, in the future of Tyrese Maxey. And I really do. I hope it starts tonight.
Yeah, so the first step, of course, is them getting this victory to give everybody hope. Give you guys a chance to believe that they can win a first-round matchup against their opponent, which we all would like to see the New York Knicks, because that means they get the 7th seed, avoid Boston until a potential Eastern Conference Finals matchup. With that, you need your key players on the floor to get this W. Of course, Tyrese Maxey, as Derek just mentioned, the starting lineup, we'll lay that out for you. Maybe we'll hear from Kyle before we get out of here, because, again, folks, we have a long night ahead of us with this pregame here presented to you by Coors Light. We then have our watch party where we're going to watch the game with you for a second time this season. It's always a blast. We hope you guys can stick around.
It's going to be so interesting because the last time we only had one watch party all year, and that watch party, like, the game didn't matter at all. It had neither Embiid nor Maxey were playing.
And we had Kyle.
We were sitting here talking about Ninja Turtles. It was the most random thing going on in the world. Now it's the most important game in the world.
And that's why I think we won't have any dead spots in this one, Derek, because of the fact it's the postseason.
If I lose myself taking notes or rewatching a play, I apologize. Someone just yell at me. I'm doing my best, but I am also a basketball journalist and also a basketball fan. I'm going to be sitting here watching the game with you guys. It is a very different atmosphere than the last time we did this, but we will be doing that after the show. Pretty much once we get to tip-off, come back to the channel, join us. You can watch along with us. We can all be nervous and excited and excitedly nervous together. Yes,
Alex, we are doing a watch along. So when we sign off from our pregame, we're going to send out a second link for everybody to tune right in. Of course, if you're already on YouTube and you decide, hey, I'm already here, I'll just go in. We will have the watch along. We're going to step away for about 5 minutes before tip-off. As soon as we sign off, we're going to come back in 5 minutes or so to get things going because, hey, we got to get ourselves together to sit here with you and watch the game. That being said, what's going to happen in this game? Derek, let's get to the inactives of this game right now. Maxey in. The key, of course, for this one will be Joel Embiid playing. Looks like he's in the starting lineup. Right?
Shocker. He's not coming off the bench.
He's not coming off the bench. No Paul Reed Mobamba in the starting lineup. Joel Embiid is starting, so we have that. But as we noted on yesterday's show, during our PHLY Sixers show on the podcast, we were talking about a late scratch or early scratch because it was the day before the game, but a late scratch where we thought they were going to have Terry Rosier, the Miami Heat, without Terry Rosier in the lineup tonight. So that's a key loss for the Miami Heat. They are down a starter. They are down one of their better scorers. He's their, outside of Jimmy Butler, their best perimeter scorer. And as Derek and Kyle alluded to on yesterday's show when we talked about this, sometimes you need somebody with some late shot clock creation, and they're going to be down one of their better creators on the floor. That's a big loss for them. So that means someone else has to step in. Again, we'll give you the starting lineup in just a second, but having no Terry Rosier for this game for the Miami Heat, that's a big loss for them in this game, man. So right away, that's a bonus for the Philadelphia 76ers, Derek.
Yeah, and it puts a lot of pressure on all of Miami's perimeter defenders. I think they're probably good. Yeah, there's a really good chance you'll see Jimmy Butler defending Tyrese Maxey for a good stretch of the game. I think it's probably their best option on him. And the question is, do they want to wear him out or tire him out, or at least risk tiring him out, chasing Maxey around all night, especially considering how much of his offense Jimmy Butler has to drive for them. And if not, can you get switches? Can you hunt Tyler Hero mercilessly, Duncan Robinson mercilessly, and force that Miami rotations? And once you get them in rotations, can Tyrese Maxey make those passes? Kyle and I both talked about it and stuff we wrote for allphly.com. But Miami is, they will play a lot of zone, a lot of 2-3 zones, some 1-3-1 mixed in, 3-2 zone, a lot of pretty much everything. They're pretty creative in that. But they tend to bring their wing defenders up higher to try to put a little more pressure on the ball, force some more turnovers, get rid of some of the, problems that typically come with the zone. In doing that, that skip pass to the corner is going to be there all night, especially if Tyrese Maxey gets by that first layer of defense. Can he make those? Can he make those accurately? Can he make those timely? I think that's all going to be very important.
All right, so let's jump to the starting lineup for them because you had to replace Terry Rosier. Duncan Robinson and Caleb Martin are right now your backcourt. Jimmy Butler, of course, with Nikola Jovic and Bam Adebayo in the middle. So Tyler Hero stepping into the starting lineup. This is the thing that I look at that when we do the inactives here now, jump to our key matchups, because as we look at this, right away, Derek, I'm saying, all right, Jimmy Butler's going to bring the ball up a lot of times. But if you can get the ball out of his hands and start to push a little bit further, have them out of their sets quickly, that's going to be to the advantage of the 76ers. Now, a lot of that is probably going to be on Kelly Oubre or Kyle Lowry to do so, where you're throwing off their rhythm, throwing off their cohesion there. Because if you get the ball out of Jimmy Butler's hands, now you're forcing them to maybe speed up what their offensive sets are. And as good of a coach as Eric Spoelstra is, he can't really control that in the moment of if Jimmy Butler does not have the basketball and now your release point is normally Terry Rozier. Now you're looking at Tyler Hero and Caleb Martin as your shot creators here, to your point. Yeah. Or even Bam Adebayo, where that can really be troublesome for the Miami Heat in this one. So as far as matchups go, I'm looking to see what Nick Nurse does defensively, because as we talk about creativity from Eric Spoelstra for what they do defensively, Nick Nurse is also known for that in his Toronto days. Does he have the personnel in the starting lineup with Kyle Lowry, Kelly Oubre, not putting as much on Tyrese Maxey as a defender to do that maybe 60 feet away from the basket to get the ball again out of Jimmy Butler's hands, to force them to speed up their offense?
Yeah, and it'll be real interesting to see who he puts on Jimmy Butler first. Does he ask Kyle Lowry to do that? In part because Kyle's strong and thick and has a chance, like he knows Jimmy Butler's moves. He's played with them. Mm-hmm. Does he put Oubre on there? Does he go with Harris? I think you actually have three viable options.
I didn't even mention Harris. Good point.
I mean, he's leveled up defensively at least one-on-one in the playoffs before. Or is it a mix of all? It'll probably be a mix of all, but I'm curious to see who they start off on. And one of the keys for me is get through those screens that Jimmy's going to run you through. Don't let him have a game where he just gets to the free throw line 16 times out of sheer force of will, because outside of that, I just don't see very many mismatches for this Miami team to exploit. As long as you can, like I said, keep him on the line, not get him to hunt those switches. I think they're going to try to get Tyrese Maxey on a switch for Jimmy to go at one-on-one quite a bit. Get through those screens. Don't let him draw out those switches, and don't let him get to the free throw line. And I think you should have a really, really good chance.
Yeah, so I'm very curious. Again, very curious, interested. I'm intrigued of how Nick Nurse and the coaching staff are going to attack that. On the Sixers side, offensively, what are you looking at there? What matchup are you really focused on? What are you eyeing when it comes to the Sixers side of taking advantage of the Miami Heat, especially, again, they're down one player. Not just down a starter, folks, and a very good offensive player who we know can go off for 20 easily. You're down a rotational player. So that means someone else is going to have to step in again. We've already highlighted, yes, Tyler Hero is starting, but Duncan Robinson, Derek mentioned him. We can also talk about Haywood Highsmith, and then even adding Jaime Jaquez in that mix as well. Is there anybody that you're really focused on here on the Sixers side where you're looking matchup-wise for them to exploit?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of mentioned a couple of them, like Tyrese Maxey making those skip passes to the corner, because I think those corner threes are going to be there all night. Embiid, whether that is post-up, whether that is a short roll. Again, I think they're going to send help, and I think he's going to have passes there to make. And then Oubre. Oubre is a third mismatch where, if they can't guard Tyrese Maxey and they're going to send two at the ball pretty much every chance they get, there's going to be closeouts to attack. There's going to be late rotations to attack. Can Oubre be decisive? Not only looking for his shot, but also what he's been doing over the last 6 weeks or so in looking for those passes as well. Those to me are if they win a couple of those, I think they'll be good.
Yeah. So as I look at it, I go right to Joel Embiid, and I want to see what he does, because Thomas Bryant is Bam Adebayo's backup. I'm not worried. Yeah. I'm not concerned. And we've seen where Bam Adebayo has had his troubles. Bam Adebayo has been in situations where he has gotten himself in foul trouble. Offensively, he can get a bit outside of his comfort zone a little bit because of Joel Embiid. He does that to a lot of people. Yeah. Joel Embiid does. But Bam Adebayo is also a guy who can have a solid game. So I'm very interested to see if Joel Embiid, number one, plays under control, because we've seen in the past where he can get himself a quick foul in about 65 seconds. And we're like, yo, what are you doing? Take it easy. Relax a little bit. You've been here before. Yeah. Don't put your team in a hole like this where we now are worried about what he can and cannot do. So I'm looking squarely at Joel Embiid in this one. How is his knee? How is he responding to the double team? Yep. And defensively, I'm not worried about him. It's more about offensively, how his knee is, responding to that double team, and then how much can he get those guys in foul trouble? Not just Bam Adebayo, though, because when those guards and those wings dig down and they start reaching, and he does already have his mind made up that he's going on the catch, and even when they're on their way with that double, can he exploit that a little bit too, where some of those guards then pick up fouls themselves?
Yeah, and you mentioned it. The passing is going to be huge. Like I said, in part because Miami is going to be aggressive to double on him. They will vary their doubles as well. Those open threes will be there if he reads the defense correctly. That's part of why the Orlando game gave me so much confidence and is so, I think it was a good test before we get here. And also getting Bam in foul trouble. Like Bam is someone who has historically tried to play Joel Embiid pretty physical.
Yep.
And at times that can, I don't want to say frustrate Embiid, but that can throw him off, maybe throw his timing and his rhythm off a little bit. But a lot of times that means Bam's getting in foul trouble. And if you can get Bam in foul trouble, then you really have a chance to go to work. So early in the game, if Joel Embiid is able to draw 3 fouls on Bam in the first 6 minutes of the game, it could be a really good night for the Sixers. I think that is absolutely correct.
Our guy in the chat is saying the finals run starts tonight. Rudy says there in the chat. Already going with the finals as we look at the Philadelphia 76ers. Is there an X factor on the other side? Jimmy Butler, of course, Bam Adebayo. Maybe it is one of those two. Tyler Hero, I know you mentioned a lot of him yesterday. Is there an X factor for you when you look at the Miami side? If we are looking at Kelly Oubre as the X factor for the Sixers, do you have one for the Miami Heat for this one game?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are like if the Sixers lose, I feel like those are the most likely candidates. Certainly Jaquez is always interesting. Duncan Robinson can get it going in a second. That's always somebody you worry about. For some reason, Caleb Martin always seems to get hot at this time of year. I don't know how or why, but yes, I worry about random stuff like that too. And Jovic is playing pretty well too.
Yeah, and he hit some big shots when they were here. Some threes a little bit in that game. So his outside shooting, if he finds himself open, he can knock down an open shot.
Yep. I mean, look, they are a team that can certainly, like, if you leave them open enough, they can shoot. I just don't think they have enough people who are going to draw double teams and draw rotations where you should have to worry about that too much. Like I said, if the Sixers get a good night shooting the ball, if the Sixers don't turn the ball over a ton, that's one thing that I think could really swing the game. And the Sixers typically do not turn the ball over a ton. I think they have a pretty good shot. It's just that kind of stuff happens. This is a one-game environment, so randomness. And if you miss a couple shots early, do you have the confidence to keep shooting? Because I think those shots are going to be there. Even though this is a very good Miami defense. And even, I ran through a lot of the numbers in the, if you look at just the numbers for the two teams this year, it looks a lot closer. But if you look at the numbers with each team when they have both of their stars available, which this game they do, the Sixers were a far better offensive team. Like, the Sixers were one of the best offensive teams in the league with both Embiid and Maxey available. I have an article at allphly.com from today about that. There's a real separation between the two. But the one way that is going to come back is turnovers, is getting a Miami team that typically plays at a really slow pace out into some early offense and some easy buckets and three-point shooting variance.
Yeah. Before we get to our best bets and looking at this one, man, as they go head-to-head here, what is your rotation looking like? Is it shortened now? Of course, no Melton. He's not there. Batum coming off the bench already, as we know. And Buddy Hield, certainly. Paul Reed, for sure. Yeah. Do you go into the campaign bag if you need to? Do you? When we've talked about it a lot, they signed him to the contract, both of them, actually, Jeff Doughton and Ricky Council IV. Do you even go that far, depending on if it presents itself?
If Jeff Doughton or Ricky Council IV get in this game, either something has gone terribly wrong or incredibly right. I don't think they will get in during, meaningful minutes. In terms of campaign's the only one I think is really on the fence. And I think that's going to be a little bit in terms of how is the game going. Like, I think this is a matchup and an opponent, especially with Rosier out, that Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid, that two-man game should be able to drive a lot of your shot creation. If that is true and you're going to be running your offense through them, then I don't think you need to put a defensive liability on the floor, especially in those minutes when both Embiid and Maxey are out there. That's going to be the majority of the game. There isn't going to be any load management in this one. But if something happens, if someone gets in foul trouble and one of those two are off the floor, because, I expect both Embiid and Maxey to play 38, 40 minutes per night.
For sure.
If something happens where that's not true and then you need some more shot creation, then maybe that's when you go to a campaign type.
Do you think Nick Nurse will go with the typical Joel Embiid plays the entire first quarter, Tyrese Maxey comes out at 6 minutes and then comes back at the end of the first? Or do you think things change now that we are here in this postseason? Certainly things could change. And part of that, like, you wonder if Joe starts, and
this is why, again, playing the final game might have been helpful just to keep him into some kind of a rhythm and a conditioning.
Right.
If he starts showing signs of fatigue at like the 8-minute mark, does he maybe alter that a little bit? Maybe. I think that could change things up just to maybe even match minutes as well. Although this isn't necessarily a matchup where you have to match minutes so much. This isn't like you're going up against, a real bruising center or something like that. But yeah, I think anything's on the table. He could certainly mix it up.
Okay. All right. Let's get to some of these best bets here, and then we'll get to our predictions because right now the line is at 5.5. Yesterday it was started at 4.5 when the Terry Rosier news dropped during our show. It jumped. Pardon me. It was 4. No, it was 4.5. Then it jumped to 5. Now it's at 5.5. No Terry Rosier. Joel Embiid certainly playing, and that's where things are right now. So as our predictions go, we'll tell you about that. As far as the number goes, see if we cover that. But as far as points go, for the Philadelphia 76ers, some of these best bets. To start off right away, I always like to go. We always like to go with Tobias Harris. We'll stay away from Tobias Harris for this one because
good vibes pregame show.
Good vibes pregame show, and this is a serious game here. Tobias Harris could certainly go off in this one. But just looking at the Sixers right away, I'm looking at Joel Embiid, and there was one thing that we discussed before the season started, you guys on the air, us off the air, as we discussed it a little bit, and his number dropping. And even when I got back, we talked about him averaging 35 points on the season. We were looking at more 25 to 28, somewhere around there. Do they need that 30-point type of night tonight to win this game? So I'll put the number for you, Derek, at over under 28.5 for Joel Embiid.
I don't think they need that night. Now, will he get it? I don't know. He might. He certainly is capable of it.
He can go off at 18 in the first quarter.
He could end up with 45 tonight, 100%.
Yeah.
So I would say if I had to pick what will happen, yes, I think he will hit that over. Do I think they need that to happen? No, not really, because I think, like I said, I think this is a matchup Tyrese Maxey is going to have success against. I think this is a matchup where they are going to be aggressive in doubling off of the Sixers shooters. I think the Sixers have pretty good shooters around Joel Embiid, especially when he is on the floor, attracting that kind of attention. On the season, the Sixers shot 39% from 3 with Embiid on the floor. I don't think that is an accident. So if Embiid is making the right decisions, if the Sixers shooters are making their open shots, and if Tyrese Maxey is attacking his mismatches, I think they can win with him scoring 25, definitely. But if I had to guess, yeah, I think he's probably going to hit the over.
All right, so let's just go one more as far as points and look on the other side and just simply ask about Bam Adebayo because, again, he does have his struggles, and as a result, sometimes those things can get out of hand for the Miami Heat. Let's go with the over-under of 16.5 for Bam Adebayo tonight.
I'll go under on that. Yeah, I'll go under on that.
Okay.
I there was a part of me that because Rosier was out would say he has to get the over if they're going to have a chance, and that's probably true. But if he ends up with 19 on horrible efficiency, relative speaking, because he's a pretty efficient guy, I don't necessarily think that's a win, but I think it's probably a little more of Jimmy trying to create that burden. And I think when Jimmy's aggressive, that tends to lead to not only points for Jimmy, but a lot of kickouts to shooters, a lot of, handoffs and whatnot for Hero. So I think that's where I would go for them to try to pick up the slack without Rosier more than Bam trying to force it against a really tough matchup in Embiid.
All right, three-pointers are going to play big part in this game on both sides, but we'll stick on the Philadelphia side and go to the Sixers bench. Buddy Hield, over under 2.5. Derek, he made
Hitting
3.
That way over. Yep.
Yeah, he made 3 against Brooklyn in just the final minute.
I think he gets 4 or 5 in this one. I think it's going to be a big buddy night.
All right, cool. Tobias Harris, good vibes. Over under 1.5 made 3-pointers for Tobias Harris.
You know what? I'm just going to say over.
Fair enough.
You can read into my body language how I really feel, but I'm going to say over.
All right. Well, that's a good one. I'll go over on this one on the rebounding side of things for Tobias Harris. His rebounding totals over 6.5.
Yeah, I'll take
because
the over
he does crash the glass and help out, and he does so in big games too. So I'll go with the over. Tobias Harris 6.5 rebounding totals for tonight. All right, let's get to our predictions here. And this one again, the over under 5.5. Derek, where are you as far as the prediction? I know you said it yesterday, but for the people who were not with us on Tuesday's show,
it's gone from 4 to 5.5.
It's going from 4.5 to 5.5.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Guess a lot of money coming on the Sixers, huh? A lot of people.
It looks like it. Yeah, looks like
I
it.
said yesterday. Was it yesterday? These days jumbled.
It was yesterday.
111, 102 Sixers. I'm sticking with that.
All right. I'm also going with mine. I said an 8-point victory over the Miami Heat, and I am also going to stick with an 8-point victory over the Heat. And that way they do cover that 5.5. Sixers advance as a 7 seed. And let's just say this very clearly before we go, that we do believe that the Miami Heat are a strong team.
100%.
They can win with anyone in their lineup because that's how good Eric Spoelstra is as a head coach. And that's what Jimmy Butler has shown in the years that he has since been with the Miami Heat. But for this one, do believe that the Philadelphia 76ers at home have an opportunity here to advance to the 7th seed and take on the New York Knicks, and they will do just that. All right, folks, we see a lot of you here, and we appreciate it. We also ask that you stay with us. Whatever your normal watching the game routine is, we are asking you to flip that a little bit for this big game against the Miami Heat, as Derek and I are going to watch the game with you right here on our channel, on the PHLY Sports channel on YouTube. So we're going to take a quick break for about 5 minutes for you to gather yourself and your belongings and do what you need to do to get ready. And the same for us. Brianna's going to make sure we're good to go. And we hope to see you back here in about 5 minutes as we talk junk, take notes, drink some things, eat some candy, maybe some pizza and your dinner, whatever it might be, as we watch the team hopefully advance as the 7th seed. So we thank you all for hanging out with us, and we'll be right back in about 5 minutes for the Sixers and the Heat play-in tournament, Eastern Conference style, and we will have it right here on PHLY Sports. Thank you.
We all silly like the mayor.